And we likely will continue to have people kind of trickle in through this. And I know probably there'll be quite a few of you watching this recorded session. So hello and welcome. I am John Staley. If you don't know me, Associate Professor in Environmental Sciences and Engineering in the Gillian School of Global Public Health at UNC Chapel Hill, and Deputy Director of the North Carolina Occupational Safety and Health Education Research Center. And I also have the pleasure of co-directing the Outreach Corps for the Carolina Center here for Healthy Work Design and Worker Well-Being, which is a Center for Excellence in Total Worker Health, funded by NIOSH through the CDC. I'll just hit a few things quickly for those of you that may, particularly watching the recorded sessions, if you are participating as a NIOSH trainee. The presentation slides and evaluation survey and recording will be available a little bit later after the session on the Carolina Center and the NC OSHRC websites. And we'll put the websites in the chat, so I suggest you would just bookmark those for future reference. And it's important to note that you want to make sure you are formally registered for the session for each seminar to get the follow-up emails, and particularly if you can't attend the day of, it'll allow you to access everything. Again, particularly whether it's NIOSH trainees or if you need continuing education or certification maintenance points, like for the industrial hygiene certification, make sure you complete and submit your online evaluation within 2 weeks of the seminar or webinar, and provide your full name in the survey, and we will send that out to you through NC OSHRC and get that to you what you need. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, well, before I do, sorry, my slide disappeared on me. One thing I wanted to mention before I turn it over to our speaker today, which we have a great session on the North Carolina Works4Health study. And our speaker is also co-director of our pilot projects program with the Carolina Center, Dr. Sean Knipe, who is the Sarah Frances Russell Distinguished Professor, Term Professor in the School of Nursing at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And she'll be introducing her co-presenter / panelists. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
Thanks, John. I'm just trying to get this to work here. Okay. And I'm going to bounce it to Maya and take it back in a little bit.
Lovely. Thank you, Sean. Just want to introduce you all to the Carolina Center. Sean, if you could please advance. So our goal as a center is to generate new knowledge and improve worker health, safety, and well-being in North Carolina and the Southeast region in the nation. We have a special focus on essential workers and the impact of working conditions on health outcomes. As John mentioned, we are one of 10 centers of excellence in total worker health. You can see the other centers are distributed across the nation, but we are currently the only center in the Southeast. But do encourage you to look at the other centers for resources if you're interested in what you hear about total worker health today. Next slide, please, Sean. And a little bit about total worker health for those of you who are not familiar with the concept. Total worker health refers to policies, programs, and practices that integrate protection from work-related safety and health hazards with promotion of injury and illness prevention, efforts to advance worker well-being. So we are an interdisciplinary field, and you'll see from our team that we cover a lot of different worker types and take a lot of different approaches to our research. Next slide. One important thing to note about how we conceptualize our work is that we are really focused on the conditions of work. So how the physical environment impacts workers, how the organization of our work, psychosocial environment Sean will be talking today about how supervisors impact workers and their experience. And so when we think about intervening in the work site, we're really thinking about how we can make the workplace healthier and more supportive of workers. Next slide. A little bit about our research. So we have two large research projects, one focused on healthcare workers, burnout and well-being coming out of the pandemic. The other focused on firefighters and reducing falls for those workers. And next slide, we also have pilot projects and want to make a special notice today that we are announcing our new round of pilot funding this week. So there will be a chance to submit your application for a total worker health pilot project. And you can do that if you go to the next slide, please, Sean. You can get information and be added to our listserv where you can get that RFA through our contact us page, or we will also post this on our socials on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at the Carolina Center. And with that, I will turn it back over to Sean.
Thanks, Maya. So as John and Maya both alluded to, we're going to be focusing on the psychosocial health in the workplace predominantly today, and the role of supervisors in that. And even more to that point is how to get to the supervisors to include them in studies. And so we're really going to be talking a lot about our experiences in our learning curve, really, for how to engage employers so that we can access a supervisor pool. I have with me today, John told you a little bit about my background. I have with me today Mr. Gregory Raymond, and he is someone with a really extensive background in employment services, working with job seekers and employers in different states. He's currently the recruitment coordinator for NC Works4Health, and has essentially redesigned all of the employer recruitment strategies. So a lot of what he is going to share with you today are the pragmatic sort of nitty-gritty lessons of how we've been able to turn some things around in that regard. So I'm really glad that he's here. In terms of what we're going to present, I'm going to provide a pretty quick review of the NC Works4Health study, its background and aims, and then focus in on the Supervising for Success intervention, which is the employer level intervention. Just talk to you briefly about the foundation and its development. There are some things around COVID, of course, and employer engagement and how that affected our study and our ability to access employers. So we'll talk about that. And then Greg will share with you many of the more successful things that we've done more recently to be able to engage with and recruit employers. I have some preliminary findings, and then we can have a conversation about what we need to do collectively for future research and practice in this area. These are the learning objectives. I'm not going to go over them. I think they're somewhere in your registration materials. This is our team. We have a pretty large team of folks. This, I should mention, this is it's an NIH and NIMHD funded study. It's a 5-year study, which will be extended to a 7-year period, just given some of the challenges with COVID. So Dr. Lenan, who is the center director, is also a co-investigator on the study, and I'm happy to see her here today. We've had lots of students from public health and nursing join us. So I just want to kind of point out where we're concentrated and located in terms of our study. The original plan for this study, because our employer networks were so solid pre-COVID, was really just to do this in Orange County in North Carolina. But with the advent of a number of things that happened, we've ended up having to expand to surrounding counties. All of those in yellow, orange, and green that you see there are the counties that we're working in now. We have existing partnerships with a number of places that are interested in the outcomes of this study, and specifically with regard to employers that were also very fruitful channels prior to this study for being able to access employers and work with employers. So the overall aims are, there were two phases to this study. One was to adapt and then test the effectiveness of a multi-level intervention that is really designed to reduce chronic disease risk in socioeconomically disadvantaged unemployed populations, and to do that in a way that it can be adopted and implemented as readily as possible. So we'll talk to you a little bit about both of those phases, but we will talk predominantly about the employer level. So just to give you some background, and I'm just going to let Maya know now, just because of my screen, the way my screen is organized here, I'm not able to see people raising their hands or the chat. So Maya, I'm going to rely on you to just kind of interrupt if that needs to happen. Okay.
Sounds great.
In terms of the background and significance, there are increased chronic disease risk factors when there are unemployment episodes. These predominantly work their way through a person through less healthy coping and health behavior pathways. The less healthy behavior changes persist, shockingly, for up to 5 years after job loss. I always kind of make the caveat that I thought, you know, right, unemployment has some risks, and I can see how people might cope with that in less healthy ways, but surely that all goes back to normal when they get a job again, right? And the answer is no. Over 5 to 10 years, there have been longitudinal studies done observing cohorts of folks who've lost their jobs, and there are a number of things that increase disease risk. You can see here, there's accelerated weight gain. It increases the risk of chronic disease by 43%, stroke-specific mortality by almost 4 times, and the risk of death increases as well. So when you think about our study specifically is looking at socioeconomically disadvantaged populations, and more specifically focused in one way that we define that group are folks who are using employment services that are publicly financed. That might be through Department of Social Services, and it might be through NC Works Career Centers as well. Let's see. So supervisor support, there's a lot to be said for that. So when people are unemployed and undergo a whole lot of stress, and then they move into a new work environment, there's particularly for socioeconomically disadvantaged groups who do not have a deep reservoir of resources to rely on, it's very stressful when they go into a new environment. And you know, in terms of the risks for maybe becoming unemployed again and not having access to the financial resources they need to just keep themselves and their families afloat. There is a lot of, so I guess what I'm saying there is that this group is very vulnerable in particular. There's a lot of bias in everyday life. People are sort of programmed with it, not necessarily intentionally, just because we're social creatures, and we take all of our surroundings and cues in. Discrimination and stressors in employment environments increase psychological distress, and that also increases chronic disease risk. And I think we talked a little bit about this. The bias features of our study are really focused. We talk a lot about bias in terms of racial and gender bias, and those definitely are important and they're in the work site. But there's also this notion of welfare bias, which comes with folks who might be accessing public services and then are assisted in terms of being placed in a new employment setting for either experience and or paid work. And when they're moved into those environments, sometimes welfare bias kind of follows them. So this deals with bias in that way too. And if they have a supervisor that's less supportive, it'll increase employee stress. But if they have a supervisor, if they have a supervisor that's more supportive, they're likely to have better job retention, and decrease recurrent unemployment episodes for workers. So this is a busy slide. It's our conceptual framework. I think it's kind of a pathway. It shows you the pathways of how these things can all affect at the psychosocial level, behavioral level, and at the chronic disease risk level. Today, the pieces up top here that are in like purplish pink are the aspects that we're going to be focusing on. And I think I'm going to skip some of this just to one of the things that I'm going to mention very quickly is you will hear a whole lot about the challenges that we've had in this study. And one prominent reason that we have had this is for many worksite well-being studies, the organization is selected maybe before the study begins in terms of intervention, trying to introduce interventions. And when folks randomize, they cluster randomize, right? They are randomizing at the organizational level, and they already have this cluster of workers. So when we're trying to figure out how interventions might affect workers, these workers are often already embedded in these employment sites. In our case, we are studying sort of the lone unemployed person out there who doesn't know which work site setting they're going into. And without getting into it, that introduces a lot of difficulty in terms of how you can access employers and the timing of that, and having to do it once the person actually moves into work. So that has been one of our greatest design challenges. I'm going to talk a little bit about phase 1 and the intervention development. The intervention that we're talking about for our study is Supervising for Success. That's our title for it. It originated at the University of Wisconsin-Madison by two social psychologists, Pat Devine and William Cox. They have a whole lot of information on their website about their psychology research that has developed some pillars, some sort of theoretical core components for how to break the bias habit. And they were really, I know that there are a lot of unintentional bias trainings kind of everywhere across the US right now, but their work is really the only definitively empirically grounded, tested work that has been done. And so we teamed up with them when we were designing the study and writing the proposal. And we took their core components here, which you can see on the right, and we made some modifications for those that would specifically speak to folks who move into work sites who are not necessarily socially or economically advantaged in the workplace and might have a unique set of a whole unique set of things to overcome. So their intervention includes 5 bias reducing strategies: stereotype replacement, individuation, meaning, and a lot of it is geared toward just being aware of what you might be doing in the moment when you are basically making some assumptions about folks that you supervise or work with. Perspective taking, situational explanations for behavior, and increasing opportunities for contact. So I'll show you a little bit more with regard to our intervention and what that looks like. One key component of the intervention is also practicing. So these 5 strategies are things that they learn, that people learn about how bias can surface, and when to notice that that's happening, and how to use this new skill set to kind of, take actions that will be less biased. And then the check-ins are really scripted interactions that should be happening with your newly hired employees so that you can practice some of these new skills. This on the left just shows what our program schedule is. So each of those 5 components has a module, and people complete these modules online. Everything was designed to be online. We recommend they start kind of checking in with their new hires. These are really short 5 to 10 minute check-ins. We have a whole guide of the kinds of things to be talking about at each check-in. So you get to know the person that you're working with, and equally important, so that they begin to understand that you're interested in their growth and how you might be helpful to them, so that they're not afraid to come and talk with you. We made all of these modifications in the intervention following a series of employer focus groups. This was pre-COVID, or immediately preceding it. And some of the things that we heard from the employers' representatives who were there is that this was a highly desirable program. Particularly the smaller businesses were very interested in it. They were completely okay with the idea of unintentional bias. And this was, a few years back now, and really before a lot of the DEI kind of wave of interest came online. They thought the interactive component and the self-assessments throughout the training, we gave them an example of that. They viewed that very positively. And my concern with being able to recruit employers at the time was that we were going to be asking too much, that we were asking that they have, regular check-ins with their newly hired people. How would that interrupt the flow of work? And I was very nervous about what they would say about this at the focus groups. And to my utter surprise, what they said was they wanted more. They recommended increasing the number of times that supervisors met with their newly hired folks. So we did. We followed their lead. Some of the things that we did to modify the intervention were, we wanted to have some interactive components of this, and we wanted to have some characters with relatable situations and stories. So right about the time that we were developing this and we thought this would be a great feature to add, COVID did hit, and we hired people who had specifically lost their jobs due to COVID to be the voice actors for us, which was, they were a really awesome group. And so throughout the modules and throughout the training, there are examples of, you know, kind of their stories, their background stories, either as a supervisor or a newly hired person. And so we use those stories in scenarios throughout the modules, and kind of show how bias between a supervisor and a new hire might take place. And then sometimes those interactions don't go well. And in the cases where they do not, the supervisors doing the modules get the chance to rate them, and then we kind of reroute them to a more constructive interaction that might have happened if they would have used some of the tools that they're given in the modules. So that's kind of the structure of what we have. This is very busy. I don't expect anyone to really read it, but at the center here, it's a timeline of everything that we have done in the study, and a number of the challenges that we had. We initially could not reach employers. This was immediately post-COVID. We had people working on our study who had very tight employer networks, who would have been able to pick up the phone once and reach numerous employers for us. And after COVID, a lot of people changed jobs, things shifted, the focus and attention of folks running these organizations or businesses was elsewhere. And we were really unable to enact this recruitment and enrollment plan that we had designed in relation to that. So we held, about a year and a half ago, we held an employer summit where we had a number of employers participate. We, you know, in this group was, you know, it wasn't about designing the intervention any longer. This group really met, like, how do we reach people now? We are unable to do that in the way that we were able to do it before. And, you know, we need help. So they made a number of recommendations. We had to do some redesigning at the study level, which I'm not even talking about here. And then we needed a full recruitment strategy change. And that's where Greg comes in. And he's going to talk with you a little bit about that. We still have challenges in our study in terms of sort of connecting the data that we need between the supervisors and the unemployed individuals who are in our study. And that is not a topic that we're really talking about today, but just know that those are there. Those remain despite our ability to really reach out and engage more employers and engage their supervisors within those employment settings. Most recently, we've done some work with the Chambers of Commerce. I know Greg has some thoughts about that and is happy to answer any questions that you have about that as we go on, but I think he's gonna focus on some of the more successful aspects of our redesign here. So Greg, I will process your slides for you if you just tell me when to do that, and keep in mind I cannot see you.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Knipe. Good afternoon, everybody. As Dr. Knipe was saying, I was brought on really to kind of help this study make it to the digital era. Prior to COVID, we were doing a lot of legwork when it comes to recruiting and marketing. We would travel to different job fairs and career expos and networking events, just to meet with employers and to tell them about the study and the benefits of participating and enrolling in the supervisory training. After COVID, as we all know, that changed quite a bit. People weren't really meeting in person. They weren't trying to be in small to large groups. So we had to figure out a way to still reach the masses while respecting people's choice of wanting to be more or less secluded or individualized. So my background has been predominantly in job development. It's been in recruiting. It's been in marketing. It's been in employer relations. So as I was brought onto the team, I was listening to the struggles that we were facing, and my job was to come up with a means to overcome these obstacles that we were facing. So that's kind of what I'm going to go into today. I'm going to focus more on the highs, as Dr. Knipe said, and at the end, we can talk about some of the struggles that I might have faced and what we think is going to work. One thing that I definitely do want to point out is that everyone's journey is going to be different. What has worked for us and our team may not necessarily be what's exactly going to work for your efforts, but at the very least, you can learn from what we did, our successes and our mistakes, in order to kind of form a better picture of what you should do. So we can go to the next slide, Dr. Knipe. All right, so it's very important that we all understand that in this day and age, so many things are online marketing, so many things are digital. It's just a matter of convenience and accessibility. So when I came on board, I wanted to create a strategy that revamped our efforts to make sure that we can reach a lot of people with minimal effort. We wanted to work smart as much as we wanted to work hard. So we tried a few different online platforms. I'm going to be talking about one that was very successful for us, in my opinion. And as much as I want to say that LinkedIn is paying me to promote them, they are not. So everything that I say, please take with a grain of salt. Some of the online platforms that we have been using has been Facebook, it has been Instagram, it has been X, which was Twitter before. We tried delving into TikTok, but for a few different reasons, that wasn't successful. And we eventually landed on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, before we partnered with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, we also tried some of their competitors, such as Zoom Info, such as Apollo. I mean, there's just a plethora of different organizations that do the same thing as LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but I can talk about why we felt it was the best choice for us, for the price point that we were trying to spend within our budget. Dr. Knipe has also already talked about the different organizations that we've partnered with: the NC Work Center, the Department of Social Services, the NC Department of Commerce, which I can also talk about my experience with them, and the Chambers of Commerce, of course. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is also kind of a busy slide, but that's just because the interface for LinkedIn Sales Navigator is so expansive. There's so much that you can do. Dr. Knipe, are we able to zoom in a little bit on
I
this
don't
slide?
think I can do that.
Okay.
I'm not sure I
No
can.
problem. Well, hopefully everyone can kind of see what the front page of Sales Navigator offers. It has the ability to just really let you search for your target audience. When people ask me, well, what is Sales Navigator? It's a business to business marketing tool, right? So it allows sales professionals to connect to their target audience. It allows a wide array of different marketing tools, and we get all that done through the use of their extended network. LinkedIn Sales Navigator has over 630 million users, and that was at the time where we partnered with them. I'm sure it's much more than that by now. So you are connected to so many different people, and it allows you to partner with them in the sense where if I partner with someone who I have no connection level with whatsoever, I'm assuming that people on this call have some understanding of how LinkedIn works, where you have your first level connections, your second level connections, and your third level connections. If I can send a connection request to someone on LinkedIn, I'm now at the very least able to send messages to people that they're connected to, even though I've never spoken to them before. Without a tool like LinkedIn Navigator, that's something that you're not allowed to do. You really have to try your best to connect with everyone, as many people as possible, before you can start sending messages and things like that, or they're just easily able to reject your messages. So LinkedIn Navigator, Sales Navigator is really important. Some things that they have, like I said before, would be advanced searching tools, which we're going to get to that on one of the next slides. It has the ability to send in-mail messages, which is so important. It has the ability to let you search an unlimited amount of profiles. And these are the expanded profiles that you don't always see unless you're connected to that person specifically. It has recommendations when it comes to sales leads. You can set criteria on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Hey, I'm trying to find these type of people in this type of industry, this type of occupational title, and LinkedIn Navigator will actually send you a list of people's names who are fitting that criteria in which you set forth, which is, again, invaluable. There's something called a social selling index, which is really great just because as you send these messages to people who you're targeting, LinkedIn Sales Navigator will actually tell you how effective your messages are. There's a degree of analytics to LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which you can see in your dashboard, where it shows you, hey, you've been sending the same type of message over and over again. It's this effective with the people that you've been trying to get into your organization or trying to sell to. You may want to consider changing it up, or you may want to consider switching your target. So again, that's a really cool feature. There's something called Spotlight. And Dr. Knight, we can actually go to the next slide because I want to show everyone. This is the filter area when it comes to Sales Navigator. What we're able to do here is look for two different types of categories. You can either look for a lead, meaning a specific and individual person, someone who works at an organization, or you can look for an account, meaning you can actually find the organization itself. And each of those different categories will present different data. If you're looking for a specific organization, not an individual, you can actually see the statistics on that organization, how their growth has been. You can see if they're in the stock market, how their stocks are doing. You can see the rate of employment that they've been seeing over the past few years. Some organizations actually have their fiscal information publicly listed. So there's so many things that you can actually see. Or if you are just looking for an individual person themselves, you'll be able to see exactly how that person fits the criteria on the filtering that you set forth. So if we just run through a couple of these quickly, obviously you can hit the expansion button, which is the plus sign on all of these, and then a drop-down menu will appear and you'll be able to see where that person is currently working. If you're looking for someone specifically, for example, at IBM, you can actually put, okay, I want someone who works at that company. If you're looking for a certain amount of people at an organization, you can enter that in the head count. If you're looking for someone who has worked at a organization in the past, of course, you can enter that. So many different options that you can kind of filter through. The ones that I use the most would probably be in the role category. I'm looking for specific occupational titles. In my role as the recruitment coordinator for the study, we're looking for supervisors. So of course, I wouldn't really try to look for people who are entry level. I'm more trying to find people who are in middle to upper management, people who are in leadership. So HR directors. I'm looking for people who have experience in training coordination or training dissemination. So people who can actually sign MOUs, people who can actually make decisions, people who are able to open those doors for us and possibly even give us referrals to their community partners or other constituents. So I do a lot with the function, job title, of course, seniority level, so vastly important. Past job title, not so much. And years in current company, again, that's not really a huge feature, but to me, it's still something that's good to know. There's also something called spotlights, which I don't think it's visible on this page, but why I like the spotlights feature so much, and this is a really cool tool. It's amazing because it will allow you not to backtrack. It will allow you to not double your work, meaning I can set a criteria where I can tell LinkedIn Sales Navigator, hey, filter out anyone who I've already spoken to. I don't want you to show me anyone who I've already sent a message to previously. And that just saves me so much time because the very last thing you want to do is spam people. You don't want to send the same message over and over again. It's just going to kill your marketing strategy. So that's something that I really like to do, is make sure that I'm not messaging the same people over and over again. And there are other spotlight things. It could be someone who has made a public post on LinkedIn within the past 30 days. So that's really important because you want to target people who are active on LinkedIn. If you're sending a message to someone who hasn't posted anything in 3 years, what's the point of that? So you want to make sure that you can implement these spotlights, which will tell you this is the target that you're looking for. Another thing would be, let's see, people who are following your company. That's such an incredible tool. I can target people who are following UNC, people who have graduated from UNC, people who are somehow connected to UNC, who are going to be more likely to listen to what I have to say because I'm a representative of UNC. Yes, posted on LinkedIn, as we can see. So there's just so many different filters. This is just a quick short view of all the things that you can do. It's much more expensive than this, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone can kind of see what LinkedIn filters has to offer. There's an arrow that you can see that's to change jobs. So what I like about that is LinkedIn will actually send you alerts when it comes to if someone has switched into a role that you're looking for. Again, for me, it was HR. So if I'm connected to people, or even if I'm not connected to them, if they have recently transitioned into a role of HR or any other occupational title that I'm looking for, LinkedIn will send me a message. Hey, this person actually just became the title that you're searching for. You may want to send them a message. It's just so comprehensive. It does so much of the work for you. And our job has become significantly easier with it, and we've been able to reach way more people. Dr. Knight, you can switch to the next. This is a really cool feature. So this is something called Smart Links. With Smart Links, it allows you to add almost like a widget or a pop-out feature to the messages that you're sending in your emails. If you want someone to be redirected to your website, Smart Link will actually give them a graphic that they can click on that will then show them what you're trying to either inform them about, what you're trying to discuss with them, just so they feel more at ease. I found that in my experience, a lot of times if I just paste a URL in my message, sometimes people think that they're either trying to be hacked or they're thinking that something is up with the message itself, and it hasn't really been effective. But when you're able to add this graphic, it's almost like a slideshow, and it will keep them in LinkedIn Navigator. They feel safer, they feel more at ease again. And once they have learned a little bit about what you're trying to do, they're way more likely to then either message you back or say, let's set up a meeting, or click that link that will hopefully take them to your website. So yeah, that's been really helpful for us, and just kind of teaching people about the supervisory training that we're offering. All right. You can go to the next slide. There's just a few more things that I wanted to talk about if possible. And that would be kind of the things to remember when it comes to our marketing strategy. We have faced a lot of different trials and tribulations trying to find the right kind of algorithm when it comes to how much we should focus on in person versus how much we should do digital. I know that I've said that post-COVID, in person has kind of waned a little bit, but that's not to say that we shouldn't at all exercise that feature. Face-to-face marketing is still very important. I don't want to shun it at all. At the same time, I understand the struggles that come with it. You're going to see less foot traffic if you try to have these giant events, but at the same time, there's something that's undeniable when it comes to seeing someone's face and being able to speak with them in person. So really just diversify your recruitment efforts and your selling methods. If you are doing online or digital marketing, if you get the opportunity to get that person's email, please don't send a message that sounds like spam. I cannot stress that enough. Your messages want to be personal. They should be individualized. I know that could be a little bit more tedious, especially if you're trying to send mass emails. But I believe there are different tools that will actually allow you to either, add the person's first name or add their last name, whatever the case may be. Try your best to make sure that when you are sending messages to people through whatever platform it is, Facebook, Instagram, Outlook, or LinkedIn, make sure that they know that you're not just some robot. Otherwise, your opportunity to connect with them is just going to be abysmal. So when you do speak with them, try to listen more than you talk. That's a very old selling technique. They always say that, when you're in negotiations with anyone, you don't want to be the last person talking, right? You want to make sure that you're listening to their concerns, you're listening to their objections, and you're able to meet that person at whatever level that they need to, so they feel like this is going to be a good partnership with your organization. And always go for the close. I can't stress that enough either. If you wait for your target to come back, or if they need to go to, well, all right, I need to speak with my director, who then needs to speak with the vice president, who then needs to speak with the CEO, odds are you're not going to be able to get done what you're trying to. So just make sure that you're always trying to go for that close right then and there, address any concerns that they have, and then finish your meeting with either a yes or a no if possible. Lastly, just accept rejection. It's going to be part of your it's going to be part of your role. If you are in any type of recruiting or marketing or selling capacity, you're going to get more no's than yeses, more than likely, and you have to be able to bounce back. If you let that affect you, then again, your numbers are going to significantly decrease as time goes on. So that's everything that really we've been facing. I know that there are other partnerships that we've had. If anyone wants to ask any questions about what I've kind of done with the chambers or any of the other organizations that we've met with, I'm more than happy to answer any of those questions or anything else that I've talked about. But that's kind of the overview of what I've been doing with the study so far.
Thank you, Greg. I'm sorry I wasn't trying to rush you. I literally just breathe on my mouse in the slides advance. So Greg's done a great job revamping our employer enrollment approach. I have a few findings to share, and then we can just have discussion and questions. So we've got a number of avenues for employers to reach out. A lot of that is through LinkedIn. This is not LinkedIn specific information that I'm sharing right here. On our website, we have a registration area where employers can go to get more information about the study and be contacted. We've had 56 employers do that to date. We've enrolled 31 employing organizations so far, and then they are randomized with our design changes now to a 0, 3, or 6 month sort of release timing for receiving the intervention. And that's just, I'm not going to explain the rationale for that, but it's just something to note here. And then we have 26 employers who have received access to the intervention. And so the way that goes is, Greg contacts as this primary person in the employer setting. They identify who all of their supervisors are. In that setting, we do not get identifying information about the supervisors, but that contact person will then send out individual links or a message where, asking the supervisors to complete this. They have some options about whether they want to mandate the training or whether they just want to ask their supervisors to do it. And we've given them the flexibility to do that. We have the number of, actually, I think I have this wrong, but we've had 26 who have had access to the intervention so far. I think the 13 number, this is mislabeled here. We've had 13 out of the 26 have at least one supervisor in their organization, at least start the training process. We have 5 supervisors sort of in the wings who were randomized to either the 3 or 6 months, who are waiting to get the intervention. And then we've had there's a lot of drop off here. And I think this is where we're going to be focusing some of our efforts. It's, we can think of 100 reasons why this probably is happening, but we've had 275 supervisors actually accept the invite from their employer contact or the lead in their employer organization to get access to the training. We've had 96 supervisors actually get far enough into the training to answer some kind of question. We've had many more who've just opened it and then stopped. And then we have what I'm calling completers. We have 32 supervisors who have completed the training. We have a whole lot in between this 96 and 32 number who kind of either just don't answer the kind of self-assessment questions toward the end of the training, that they might get through all the content. That's not something that we've really discerned yet. And then if you look at where the folks are coming from, where the supervisors are coming from, what kind of industries, most are local or state governments, a lot in other sort of fast food enterprise industries. We have a couple of companies who help manage all of the local chain kinds of restaurants in the area. This is, I think, notable because this is pre-intervention self-assessment. So we have them do some pre-post kind of things. And if you look at, these are 5 areas of target kind of that we would want to improve in our supervisors in terms of, communicating and interacting with their newly hired folks. The 5 is the highest rating they could give themselves, and 1 is the lowest rating. So just looking across here really quickly, we had 64 out of the 96 who actually did this pre-assessment. Like I said, a lot of people just skip the assessment questions and move on to the modules. But so we had a group here that came in like pretty confident of their ability, and keep hold of that idea as we look at these last couple of slides. Oops, again, I breathed too hard. This slide, I looked at the completers and made some variables based on whether there were positive or negative changes on their skills in these same areas. And so 32, this is the 32 that completed. If you look at the green, those are folks who rated their ability to address these things or be aware of it, or the skills that go along with in these areas, that they made improvements on them. And so I take that to be a fairly good indication, particularly given that people rated themselves kind of high anyway as they were starting the training. So these are just really quick glimpses of findings that, and we have many, many more that we're just kind of starting to slog our way through and take a look at. I believe that Maya will distribute the slides or make some PDF version of them available. And our emails are here if you want to email and you have any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see people. And I think we're open to take questions now if anybody has any.
Now unmuted. Thank you, Sean and Gregory. Really appreciated this. It seems like this potentially sets up a good communication structure within a work site that might not have been there before. Would this be a good way to offer maybe health promotion programs in the future to try to reach a larger number of people than just putting flyers up, that type of thing?
You mean LinkedIn, Alice?
Yeah, this system that you're using, this software, it's LinkedIn that?
But yeah, so Greg talked about LinkedIn and how we're using that to try to make contact with employers so that we could then enroll them to do the supervising for success intervention. But I don't know, Greg, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we use LinkedIn to supplement our other efforts. Our other partnerships within the community, the NC Work Centers, the chambers, that also really helps. They have a very large network of people, thousands upon thousands of employers. So that helps as well. But having LinkedIn allows us to really take control of our own recruiting efforts and reach millions of people. So yeah, LinkedIn is definitely something that can really help, but just make sure that you supplement it with other efforts.
And I should note, like, our numbers are really quite small. We are concentrating them to businesses in our 8 counties. Like, we're prioritizing where we're sending. So even though LinkedIn has access to like millions of people, we're actually just focusing in on the counties where the study is, because for lots of design reasons. But we sometimes, Greg has had some people outside of those areas say, hey, I saw this and I'm really, really interested. And if they have, we're making it available to them too. So.
Greg, can I ask on average, how long does it take to kind of secure a successful contact going this way?
If we're talking about through LinkedIn, it should be less than a week. So from the starting point where I send a message to someone on LinkedIn, I'll give them a grace period of, maybe 2 to 3 days before I wait to hear back from them. I try to ask for an email address so we can move things off LinkedIn. And then within that email, I'll request to have a Zoom meeting or Teams, whatever they prefer. And within that Teams or Zoom meeting, I always try to close it and say, hey, I've told you or I've explained to you the process of what we're trying to do. Is it something that you would like to participate in? And get their signature of an MOU, hopefully right then and there. If not, then by the beginning or middle of the next week, it should be done. So we're looking at about a week.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I'm just going to say, as someone who's done a lot of recruitment of workplaces, a week and a half is like unbelievable to close a deal with an employer. So congratulations on that process. I wanted to hear a little bit more, because you've mentioned the chambers a couple times, and we've had different kinds of collaborations with the chambers over time, and I'm just wondering to what extent they've been engaged in recruitment for this study, and how that partnership may have been helpful or not.
One thing that I would definitely like to say is that every chamber is different. We predominantly have been working with the Chamber of Chapel Hill, who has been so good to us. But you'll also find that your experience will be different depending on which county you try to partner with. The Chapel Hill Chamber has so many events. You could honestly go to multiple events a week, which they all have a slew and just, again, a plethora of different employers who are there that are specific to different industries. So you kind of want to pick and choose which ones you're going to so you don't burn out. But the chamber is also very busy. We can't expect them to drop everything that they need for us. So again, it's just really good to have them as one of the choices or outlets for your recruiting efforts. Largely in part to them, we've had a handful of different employers who have enrolled in our training. So we thank them for that. They also allow us to be mentioned on their social media platforms, their Facebook accounts. They send newsletters out that talk about us. They have, different hosting events. We're actually going to be kind of hosting an event in about 2 weeks on May 31st, where we're going to have employers come to us. So they offer so many different opportunities and so many different ways where we can get the word out. So they've been very kind to us. And I do want to thank them for everything that they've done.
They're paid opportunities. Just so people know, like, if you plan to engage with the chambers for recruitment, there needs to be budget
Yes.
planning in there.
Is quid pro quo for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to cut the conversation short. We're at the top of the hour, but looks like this is just the beginning of conversation. Again, the slides and the recording will be available for this webinar, but more importantly, Sean and Greg's email for additional information. So I expect more questions. Get ready for them, Sean and Greg. And this information, everything will be put up on the Carolina Center for Healthy Work Design and Worker Wellbeing a little bit later today or tomorrow. So again, thank you for joining us, and thank you so much, Sean and Greg, for your presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
Stay dry.
Yeah.